Ok, pues un año más, one year more.
Yes, this is like the fourth.
The fourth year,
yes.
yeah, that's a good tradition. So you know, next year.
Yes, of course.
It's a special anniversary, but now we are in the fourth year. So aquí tenemos a Cenk una vez más con nosotros, coincidiendo con Sonar. Y para esta ocasión pues nos va a hablar de un poco de las versiones MK2 de la serie Analog de Elektron, ¿de acuerdo? Analog RYTM y Analog Four, que son mucho más que un lavado de cara, es decir, mucho más que una pantalla con más resolución o unos encoders de mayor duración, ¿no? Así que si no me enrollo más, ¿de acuerdo? Así que Cenk, your time.
Muchas gracias. Yeah, thank you very much for coming. Yeah, like it was just mentioned now, yeah, in this session we wanted to focus on the Analog 4 and the Analog RYTM, the Mark II models, because we haven't really focused on them since we released them, because they're a substantial update to an existing product. But the updates, they make a difference between the Mark II and the Mark I. The first thing that I could mention, the difference is the screens. They're much better, especially it's really much more visible from all the angles, and it has a better refresh rate. And the interface is bigger and resulting in a bigger case. Yeah, that has a bit of a drawback in terms of carrying it around, and I wasn't really happy with it at first, actually, honestly, but after using them since release, yeah, I learned to live with them. And when I go back to Mark I units in my studio, they don't feel as nice. This is only my personal thing. I'm not saying this is as the reality, but that has been my personal experience with these things, with these units. And the buttons are, they're kind of better, especially with the lights. So it's much more informative which button that you're pressing. And I actually prefer square buttons to round. And also we have better encoders. And I think the best updates between the Mark II and the Mark Is would be the quick performance knobs here. We'll get to that later, but basically it allows you to assign 5 different parameters for any of the tracks onto this knob here. And depending, it doesn't matter which page you're on at the time of operating the knob, it will always be assigned to that. That is the whole purpose of it. You choose one of the performance macros to assign to this, and it becomes that. Yeah, so for me that is the biggest update. And I guess everybody's like thinking, yeah, where is Overbridge? I guess I need to make that clear to everybody. Yeah, I don't know where it is so far, but what I know is that we're really working on it. It's going to happen. It's such a big undertaking for us, and therefore it's taking much more long time than what we estimated. But rest assured that this is going to happen. Overbridge is going to be out, and it will be free of charge. So it is actually included with the machine you buy. You don't pay anything extra, and it will support the Analog 4, the RYTM, and the Digitact at launch, as I believe. As I understand, don't take me responsible for it. And I think, as far as I know, the Digiton will follow later, but we shall see at the launch. Like I said, I don't know much about it. I'm waiting, just like the rest of everybody else, but I hear and see that it's coming along, so it's going to be out. Yeah. So yeah, if anybody has any questions while I'm going through all this, just fire away. But I'll start with the Analog 4 because I like the RYTM. That's actually my favorite machine of all time, I would even say. Yeah, it's really growing on me, so I want to finish it like a dessert. See, this is like a boring main course, and this is the dessert for me. So I'll spend the first 30 minutes around this and another 30 minutes on that. So the Analog 4 is like, you have 4 mono tracks on this, and it's 100% signal path. It applies to both of the units. So you have 4 mono signals, and of course these can be changed to make polyphonic chords if you wish to do so. And if you don't want to sacrifice your tracks to make polyphonic chords, you can use a sub-oscillator. Let's have a look at that actually while I'm talking about this. Okay, so we need this. So we restart this sound, and it sounds, this is like the normal sawtooth waves. And you get these waveforms. and then you have a feedback. You can do that stuff. But let's go back to saw, and like I said, you have a sub oscillator for 2 of the oscillators per track, so you can make chords such as these. So it's like the 5th of the note you're pressing. Normally sub oscillators are like 1 octave, which is, this is without it, and this is 1 octave down, and you get a 2 octave down, and you have another one, I think this is a pulse wave, which is 2 octaves down. So that's in between the pulse wave and the normal 2 octave down, and then you have the 5th as a sub oscillator. I find this really, really cool actually, because for example, now I can feed in the second oscillator. So you hear it there. If I detune it a bit, so you hear it. But what you can do, maybe you can, for example, set the tuning of the oscillator to +3. So now it sounds like this. That sounds like 3 notes. So let's have a look at the notes. So this is the first one. Then you have the third oscillator. We bring in the second oscillator. Then if I activate the 5th sub oscillator for the second oscillator, gosh, so many oscillators. So basically I'm having the second oscillator with a sub. And you get, so now that's like 4 different notes pressing at the same time. And I'm not sacrificing any of the tracks. I think this is a really cool feature on this machine. I haven't seen it much elsewhere. I really, really enjoy working around with this. So, so we saw like you got 2 oscillators per track, and I'm on track number 1. And then each of the tracks offers you 2 analog filters, and one of them is a low-pass filter, and the other one is a multi-mode filter. So you have 2 filters each of the tracks. And between these filters, you have an analog overdrive engine, which has been substantially upgraded for the Analog Four MK2 model. We'll have a look at that later on. And then you have sound effects for chorus, delay, and reverb, and an amp, which is the attack, decay, and sustain and release. And these would be the effects. So that's the reverb, which is very nice. And then this is the delay. And then you have the chorus. And those are the digital effects, and there's sound effects. So on top of the 4 mono tracks, you also have an effects track, where you have the settings and the sequencer for the effects track, for reverb, delay, and chorus. And then you have a CV track for external modular gear. Another thing to mention with the MK2 upgrade is that we also now offer a CV input. They are here, the control inputs here. So you can actually send CV and gate into these machines now. This is rhythm and the Analog 4, so it talks to modular gear much better than before actually. I personally haven't used that much feature, but I've seen other people use it, and it's a really, really cool way to mess around with the sounds in this. For example, you can send an oscillator out into the control in and assign that oscillator to manipulate 5 different parameters from different tracks. And I believe this is 4 parameters on the rhythm with all the different tracks. That's quite a powerful feature, because with you send an oscillator, it's a very high fast rate, and it will follow that, and it will manipulate the parameters that you've chosen. It's a really cool feature, I think. Moving on, you have 2 envelopes for each of the tracks and 2 LFOs. So let's make use of these. So we have this one. So let's go to the filter page. I really like the low pass filter on this. It has such a nice tone, and if I crank the resonance up, you can get these lovely overtones very easily. And you can hear there's kind of a weird thing happening there. You wouldn't really hear this probably on digital synthesizers, because the analog filter is messing up here. So I really dig this instability. We were talking about this just recently actually, the instability factor of the analog signal. Then if I apply overdrive to this sound, let's hear that. Maybe this is not the best sound to apply overdrive on, but you have 2 versions versions of the overdrive. This was like the plus version. So this is at 0 now. And then we have a negative version, which has a different flavor. So you can do that. And of course you have envelope for both of the filters. For example, let's try that out. So the filter for the low pass is kind of in the middle. And if I put an envelope depth and have like a long attack, so I can have the filter opening gradually. And this is really nice when you combine it with some effects such as reverb and delay and chorus. Just turn them all on. It's going to sound good. Yeah, I really like this type of sound. And I just made this from scratch and using the oscillators, sub-oscillators as the fifth setting. So you can get a really rich sound out of that, like in this type of setup. Let's have a look at the second filter. You can set it, right now it's set to high pass. So I'm removing the low end. And if I crank the resonance up again, let's pick a frequency. Yeah, this is it. So I've cranked up both of the resonances. You get some really screamy sound like that pretty easily. And you don't lose much of the body of the sound, which is kind of a common thing when you crank up resonance in a sound. You kind of lose the low end or the body of the sound sometimes. And then we could have a look at the envelopes. So I said there is, you have an amp envelope, then you have two envelopes. One of them is a filter envelope, the other one is just a free envelope. And on both of them, oh nice, you see it on the screen too. On them, you have two destinations. Let's open the filters up so we hear the sound better. For example, I see that the first envelope, which is also the filter envelope, has got two destinations, so I can maybe activate them by changing the depth. And these are assigned to pulse width of the oscillator. So you can hear the sound changing now with the pulse width as well. So I could go to the second envelope and maybe pick, I don't know, let's choose pitch modulation, because that's going to be very audible. And I'm going to apply just a tiny bit with a long decay. So I applied very little increments of pitch changing with the envelope there. So you can hear it. Or you could do it quite drastically. But this is only affecting oscillator 1. So you can choose, let's affect oscillator 2 actually instead. Or you could select that you can modulate both of the oscillators. And let's find that. Here it is on the list. And one of the things that I really like is that the envelopes are very snappy. So if I have a very short decay and a very high depth for the pitch modulation, and you can assign these envelope destinations to almost every parameter. I mean, the list is quite long. You can assign it to LFO speeds or the sub-oscillators or filter. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to experiment with it. And personally, I don't really use these features for my own music, but it's there. Let's turn those off. So I'm going to turn the envelope modulations off here. Let's see. Okay. Oh, come on, turn off. Yes. So let's have a look at the LFOs. We have two LFOs here, and this is for each of the tracks. And I really like to use it on the filter actually all the time. It's already assigned to the filter. on the low pass filter. So I set the filter right at the middle with some kind of halfway resonance, and let's hear what happens to the sound. There is a really nice, neat trick with the LFOs, and this applies to nearly all our units. All our units has this feature, which is like the fade of the LFO. So right now the LFO is heard right at the beginning of the sound. I mean, I think it's a bit too much. So I can actually use the fade parameter like an attack or a decay. So now I set it up so that it will increase over time. I think this is a really cool way to design your sound actually. You have a lot of waveforms. There's triangle, sine wave, square. Let's try that. You have saw, exponential, ramp, and a random. Let's see here. And what I really like is that you can have the LFO going really fast. So fast that it's actually in the audio. I mean, you don't have to use LFOs like in a traditional way on these machines, not just to modulate some parameters. You can actually use it in a way that you're modulating so fast in an audio rate that you get a totally different tone. I really like that about it. It's assigned to the filter, but I'm gonna activate the other destination. Each of the LFOs has got two destinations. So the second destination, I want to assign it to the pitch. Just a tiny amount of it though. It's incremental here. It's a great way to really take the sound forward. I think it's really cool. One of the things that I really enjoy with these machines, not just the Analog 4, is the trig conditions. So let's have a look at the sequencer. Let me pull up this patch. It wasn't this. Yes. So we have this bass sound here. So each of the tracks, including the FX and CV, they have the awesome Elektron sequencer where each of the steps can be assigned with a lot of different parameters. So let's have a look at that. So now the sequencer is running and there's no notes. So I can enter notes like this, and you can assign different notes by just pressing the step and then which key that you want it to be in. It's very simple actually to program with this thing. And you get all the controls right here, so like that. But I mean, that's kind of basic and it's kind of standard in these times actually. But what really separates the Elektron sequencer, I think personally, is the trig conditions here. So you can see it's a 16-step sequence. I can rank it up to 64 steps, but still that is not really enough personally for the music that I do. I want something that's kind of more evolving in one pattern. 64 4 bars isn't really enough. That's where the trig conditions come in, because you can either apply a percentage to trigger the step, or you can apply, like for example, 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 5 ways to trigger it. Let me try showing you this. So here I'm going to place this note, okay, and I'm going to say I want this to be triggered. Oh wow, that's weird. Can't believe this. Great. Okay, now it's working, but here it isn't. Okay, so then I'm gonna apply this step here. Yeah, now it worked. So this step here is gonna get triggered 1 out of 4, and this is what it does. And now notice that it doesn't get triggered the next time. And it won't get triggered the next time either, but now it will. Yeah. So that kind of, you have a 16-step sequencer, but you're actually playing with a parameter that enhances the length of it in a way that is kind of very easy to understand, I think, personally. So how I can improve this is that I put another note here, and I want this note on this step. But here I'm going to say it's going to get triggered every 2 out of 4. So this one is 1 out of 4. And here I'm going to place this note here. And I'm going to say you're going to get triggered every 3 out of 4. And here we have this note. And that's going to get triggered every 4 out of 4. And so with just 16, with just a 16-step sequence, I made this lengthy composition. Let's have it a bit more. Yeah, there you go. Boom. Yeah. Let's have add slide to it. So you have the note slide, which I really enjoy. And then we put it. And let's exaggerate the slide. Yep. Let's turn the filter. So that's a really, as you can see, with just 16 steps, you come up with a longer way of doing it. And what I did here, I didn't even think of what's going to happen. What I can do is maybe add a high note here, like this, but parameter lock it so that it's kind of sounds a bit better than this. Yeah, like this. And add a lot of reverb to it. And I will say that this note, this step actually, should get triggered every 8 out of 8. So, yeah. So this note will come in every 8th time. So effectively, you're making your sequence much more interesting. Yeah, this happens once in a while. You could also add like maybe 50% chance of triggering this, so it doesn't come in every 8 times. But I prefer to use these values instead of the percentage, because then you have a more stable composition. Because now my brain is actually waiting for this step to come in every 8 times. At least that's the way I'm perceiving it. So I'll go to the next track. So we have this sound, so let's change the attack. Yeah, something like this with a lot of effects, of course. Yeah. So now I want this to come in here. Yeah. But like again, this time I'm going to use percentage. So I'm going to give 25% chance of triggering this. And then I assign another trick here with this note. And I'm going to do the same, 25% chance. So now I can copy this step and paste it around and change the notes. So all these 4 notes have got 25% chance of triggering. So that's why they don't trigger all the time. This is a really, it kind of brings the generative sequencing element to these boxes, and I really like that. Because using these boxes for like many years now, it kind of gets to you that, at the end of the day, you're just listening to a loop. But then, isn't that what electronic music is? Yeah. But still, this is the more interesting way to compose. I think it's really cool. Another neat trick is, what do we have? Oh, so I have a kick track here, so I can just put in 4 kicks here. So let's save the kits before I mess anything up. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and another really cool thing that I like about the Analog 4 is each step can have a different sound assigned to it. This is actually a bit more further than the parameter locking. Yeah, let's say, with the parameter locking, I could say, I want to have the filter very open on this. I don't know, yeah, something like that, or like this. But in this case, I'm going to assign a different preset that has been created and stored in the machine. So you can hold any step that you want, and then use the track level to change which sound you want. So you have to hear. So then you can actually take it a bit further because it's a bit too loud in the mix. So you can just decrease the volume just for that step. And I don't want the delay, so I turn the delay off. And of course, I can add preconditions to this, so it's going to come in every 3 out of 3. Let's add another sound here as well. Actually, that was good. Yeah. And yeah, this step here, I can assign, maybe 50% chance of triggering that. And maybe I can do like a little fill here. And let's change some other sound. Let's see. Yeah, okay, this is a good one. Yeah, let's see. So I'm going to hold all 3 of them and tweak it a bit. So I'm going to make it a bit snappier, like this. Yeah. And I could say that, I want this to come in every 7 out of 7. Yeah, so just with the 16-step pattern, I created this thing that is much longer than this. But personally, I think this is a very fast way of working, but it depends on different people, I guess. And let's see what sounds we have here. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, that would work. Not really, let's delete that. Yeah, and so that's how I would use the Analog 4. And of course you have all the 4 tracks coming out individually, and these are actually stereo outputs apparently. So if you're panning your tracks in your mix in here, and if you send them out to your multi-track recorder of some sorts, you'll get the panning too, which is pretty neat actually. Now let's have a look at the quick performance knob. So I press this button to go into the performance mode. In the performance knob, you have the 10 encoders here, which they are just basically MIDI macros, so to say. And each of them can hold 5 different parameters with different either plus or minus to change the sound. And then you could set it up here. Almost every parameter can be assigned to these. There's a lot of things to do, but let's see what the quick performance knob is assigned to. It's assigned to the first one, because when I hold the button, I can see which you got 10 here, which one is you get to decide here which performance macro that this one wants to control. So it's now controlling number 1, and if I change it, you'll see on the screen that that's being changed. So what this this performance macro is doing is decrease the kicks, open the filters in one go. So this control is always in front of you when you're messing around with the machine. So I could maybe be in the bass track and open the filters, but at the same time I go like this and maybe change the filters. So it's a great tool to actually change the flow of your music as you're playing with this, with the quick performance knob. Yeah, and eventually with the long-awaited overbridge, when you have that, you shall be able to connect your computer to with a USB port and record all the tracks separately. I'm really looking forward to that feature because I don't have a sound card or anything personally. So it's going to be very cool to just connect into a computer and record them, I think. Hopefully, yeah, when we see it. What else we can have a look at? Let's see. Oh yeah, you have an arpeggiator. Let's have a look at that one. That's a cute sound. Yeah. So the arpeggiator, let's set it for the speed 9, and here it is. Yeah. What's cool with the arpeggiator is that you can actually set up, is it here? Yeah, it's here. The sequence that is playing. So you could say, okay, I want to have, where is that? Yeah, so that's how we did it. Oof, I forgot. So yeah, you can change the sequence of your arpeggiator. So you can hold the step here and say, okay, I want to have plus 12 on this. Here I want to have plus 7. Here I want to have minus 3. Yeah, it's very visible. And here let's have 17 or 5. Yeah, +5. And then the only one that didn't work was this one here. There's a -3. If we put it for 2, -2. Oh, come on. Yeah, and then if you press a chord, and then you can get some very intricate rhythms very quickly like this, or melodies, and with a reverb, of course. And all the time we'll be using this machine in a monophonic manner. So let's go to the polyconfig and turn all the 4 tracks on. And so now we can actually use it in a polyphonic manner. There is an off note there, which is very weird. So now I've used the second oscillator with a 5th sub, which is like with +7. Yeah, I hope this works out. And on the first oscillator, I'm going to do the 5th oscillator again. Yeah. What I really miss here is I'm noticing is that there isn't a hold mode for the ARP. So I have to hold my hand here when I'm going through the menus. But it's not a big deal. You can just put it here. Ah, what have I done? No, here. You can just put a step here like this and set the note length to 16, so it just loops the pattern for you. Yeah, let's change the speed. 6. Let's make it slower on the BPM. That the Analog 4 has is, okay, let's turn the second oscillator off and the sub oscillator for the first oscillator. So you're only hearing just the one note coming from the oscillators. And I really like that it has like these internal LFOs. So for example, the pulse width has its own internal LFO, so we can hear that now. It's really nice. So I'm not using the LFOs that I have for each of the tracks, the 2 of them. This is actually 2 parameters as assigned to the pulse width side of the oscillator. And you just do that in the oscillator screen. I really dig this feature actually. Let's see, let's make it a bit quicker. And the second oscillator, let's bring that in. But yeah, let's do it -7. Oh. Modulation on that too. Really fast, but yeah, it's kind of going now. Yeah, so in terms of polyphony stuff, I think it really works very good. Yeah, that's something that I really like. Let's have a look at the overdrive. We had a look, but it wasn't a really good example, I thought. So let's clear the sound. And let's try to make a 303 type of sound here. And then turn the level down a bit. Yeah. Actually, I have a patch like that anyway. Let's find that instead. Yeah, here we go. They're a bit more faster. Yeah. So let's have a look at the 303 type of sound here. So that's without any overdrive now. So I'll crank the overdrive, and mind you though, the overdrive is between the 2 filters, so I can really exaggerate the overdrive. Sound when you crank the resonance up. So that's the new overdrive. It's a bit more bitey than the Mark 1, but yeah, I think it's got a bit more stronger flavor in this one. It's ultimately like a personal preference, I think. But either way, each time I crank it up, use it, it has the sound that I'm looking for actually. Does anybody have any questions so far? No. Yeah. So I think I covered, well, at least my favorite stuff in here. That's what I can say. Another thing that I really like is the reverb actually. If you set the reverb as like an infinite thing, yeah. So now you can make some really nice ambient music just with the reverb actually, I think. And you have a filter, so I can remove some of the bass. Maybe that's for the input of it. Let's try it again. So I'll stop everything and then let's try again. Okay. Yeah, so that's for the input actually, not. Yeah, it is. But yeah, you have the filter, so you can remove the frequencies in the reverb. Yeah, that's really cool. And the delay itself is actually can do some self oscillation. Let's try that. Let's see. So that's the delay. Everybody heard that? And now if you set. So now the feedback is set to like 100. So it will never fade out actually. But if you set it over 100, which goes up to 200, it's almost brutal. So I've set it to 200 with a very low level of the delay engine. So what's cool now is that you can change the delay time and using the filters of the yeah, you can come up with some interesting sounds to actually sample from. Take it on from there, I think. Maybe some overdrive. The delay actually has an overdrive for the feedback as well, which yeah. So basically, this is like the delay is just like going really crazy. Yeah, it's freaking the thing out actually. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit dangerous to play with, but yeah, if you keep the volume down, well, the volume down on the delay engine, yeah, if you keep that one, then everything's gonna get down as well, which is not what you want. Yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's pretty much about it for the Analog 4. Let's move on to this one. Yeah, the rhythm is, yeah, like I said, it's really cool. The sounds that I get out of it is so. The whole patterns that I can make on it, it just sounds like that it's ready to be published. It has that tone to it. Let's play some of the patterns. I don't know what are these? That sounded a bit. Let's see. No. Yeah. I mean, let's see. I think it's these patterns. Let's see. Yeah, and you have the same thing with the performance control. You can assign the performance macros to it. But the performance macros work in a bit of a different way on this one. And then let's see on this one. Yeah. So on this performance macro is actually, I'm pitching down the tom. So without the performance macro, it sounds like this. So I set it up that I imagine it as like a drum fill, so that the drummer is like hitting the lower notes or something. And then you do it manually. And then you put the kicks in stuff and like that. I really enjoy playing with this machine, especially with live scenarios. Yeah, it's such a killer for me. I can't brag on about it enough. I really like it. But let's have a new pattern and start messing around with that. The biggest difference, the biggest upgrade that this one had is the sampling on it. So I'll just run a music app here. Yeah, here we go. I haven't tried this, so I have no idea how it's going to sound when sampled. So this is the output of the phone is going into the input here. Mind you though, this is like the digital input. You also have an external input for the analog input. So this rhythm has got two stereo inputs, one for analog, one for digital, which that makes it kind of really cool actually. So you can have two sources coming in stereo and you can monitor them in. But one of them will have to go through the compressor and the other one is just directly to the master. So let's sample this. Is this loud enough? Okay, that's how it is. But whatever you record in there, it gets normalized. So it's not an issue to lose that. But so I just press yes. So now it's recording. And then, yeah, that should be enough. So I can stop that now. And then we could play it back, just pressing function and yes. And the sampling works exactly the same way as a Digitact. It's kind of like a port on this one. And then, so you have like you can select the start point of where you want to trim it from. And the screen gives you a really, nice information to pick where you want it. So you can zoom in and out where you want to cut it from. You can really zoom in or not. And you pick where you want it. And it's the same for the end. So what's really cool is that, let's say, for example, I really like this bit, for example. Then I press trim, and now I only have this sound, okay? So now I can save this sound, and after I've saved it, then if I go back to the screen, I have the whole thing that I recorded. So what I'm trying to say here is that the sampling and picking out, trimming and saving is not destructive. You always have the original recorded thing. I think this is really cool in a sampler like this, because it's not like an Octatrack or Ableton or other things, because you record the sound, you save it, and it is that. So then with this method, we give the users an option to, for example, you could have a drum kit here, you could hit kick track, all the hi-hats and stuff. You have 30 seconds to record into. Then after you recorded all these individual hits on your synth or a drum or wherever you are, then you could trim it up and then save them as individual samples without have to record them back. This is it's a really cool old school way of doing it. But yeah, you must have heard it. Yeah, old school is the best way. Some people say that, but yeah. So let's save this sound. Let's call something random. Saving. This is a really cool bit. It asks you where you want to assign the save sample, just like on a Digitact. So I press this pad because I was on that pad, and I know that there isn't any other parameters changed. And now I have that sound here. I'm going to put the decay a bit low, like 2 o'clock, so that it kind of fades out. Yep. And maybe a bit of attack. Yeah, to get rid of the clicking that can happen when playing it back. So first thing is that you can play this, where are your settings? Play it chromatically. Over 4 octaves, just like on the digitact. So far you're thinking, yeah, why the hell do I need this? It's pretty much like a digitact. Well, it has this. Each of the 12 tracks, they have an analog engine. So until now, we've only been hearing the digital side of it. The analog engine is here, and let's make this clear first, is that you have 12 tracks, and you actually have 8 voices over 12 tracks. You may be able to see it. Yeah, you can. These little white things here, they show that these 2 tracks, they're sharing the same sound, same engine, same audio thing. So they choke each other. Well, I mean, on a drum kit, you can't play open hi-hat and close hi-hat at the same time. So it's like that. Well, apparently on the rhythm, you can't play cymbal and cowbell at the same time. Yeah, but as a drummer, I can see I could do that. But you get the idea. So those are shared in between. And on this track that we're on, these are the tone tracks. Low tone, mid tone, and high tone. They have this tone generator, and this is all analog. So each of the tracks has got an analog synthesis, and that's what you're hearing now. And of course, you can tune it. Yeah, I really like it that you can get these very nice low ends with it. And you have a noise generator in this. And of course, this can be played chromatically. But what's cool is now I can mix this sound with the analog sound. This is something very cool. I think so, yeah. Let's do it like this. Yeah, something like this, yeah. And add some overdrive. Yeah, each of the tracks has got an analog overdrive, analog multimode filter, and an LFO. It isn't as rich as the Analog 4. Well, this is a synthesizer and this is a drum machine. You don't have as much as parameters that this one has. I mean, the parameters that you have, each track on this thing is probably like about coming up to 100 for each of the tracks. Not the whole thing. But here, let's see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 24, you get like, yeah, 24. 6 times 4 is 24. So that's the amount of things you get. But here on some of the pages, there are double pages, which considerably adds the amount of parameters. And each of the pages has got 10 parameters on this. On this one, you only have 8. Oh, so it was 6 times 8. That is 48 then. Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of like double the parameter amount. But yeah, we were going to add overdrive. So now, yeah, the tom is too loud, so I can go and decrease the tom and increase the sample. Yeah, it's a pretty weird thing to hear, I think. Then you have the filter. And I like it that you can have high pass, band pass, which is something that I find it's quite lacking on the digitacts, but hey, this one has this. You have much more filter modes on this one. And another cool thing is that you can play the sample in reverse. You have a start and end point. So if the end point is before the start point, then the sample will start at the end and go to the start of it, because that's how the parameters are set. And now it's playing in reverse. But with all the effects, it's kind of hard to hear. But trust me, it is really in reverse. So you can really make these dirty, distorted tones, or you could make a very nice clean tone like this with a lot of reverb and delay. This is probably what I would be doing. And the LFO, we could assign it to the fine tuning of the sample that I captured. So it will give like a vibrato effect. Yeah, very nice. This is really, yeah. So we could start sequencing this, and the sequencer is kind of the same. Let's have it like 1, 2, 7, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty much the same sequencer. There's a few differences, like the re-triggering. You don't have re-triggering on this one, but I do on this one. And you have the trig conditions. You know, you can have individual step length, but with the trig conditions, I don't even feel the need for that personally. But if you combine trig conditions and individual step lengths, that's quite a crazy thing to do. So let's put a one-step trig, and it's playing that. So what it would be cool maybe is to assign different notes, different steps with different notes in the sequencer. So you could say maybe -5, yeah. But as usual, I don't want this to come in every time. I could say, yeah, you should play every 4 out of 5. And I'm going to put a high note here. Yeah, that's good. And that will come in every 3 out of 3 maybe. Yeah. And just on this step, I want to activate the analog engine. So I would increase the level of that. And because we have the bandpass filter, we can't really hear that. So I can change the filter setting just for this hit. Yeah. Then you get to hear these kind of clickings because the filter is changing. There are ways around it. What I could do here is that I could assign this type of trig. The yellow one, you do function and press a step. This is like a trigless trig, so it doesn't trigger the sound, but it just manipulates the parameters. It's just like automation. So I could turn the volume down, so basically the sound gets cut off here and giving you, you know, a bit of a difference between the filter being low pass and then band pass instantly, because that's what's causing the clicking. And then another cool feature that all the Elektron sequencers has is you can nudge the steps. This is a step sequencer, but everything isn't quantized, which shamefully, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people think that way. So I'm really trying to tell this all the time, that you hold the step and you press left and right. And this applies to all our machines, that you can nudge all the steps. So now I nudge the voice cutting thing to remedy the click far into the right of it. So the trigless trig plays just before the 11th step. So almost inaudible, but as a result I got rid of the clicking. So there's always workarounds when you hear these clicks because you're changing different parameters per step. It's kind of natural, you know, but you can work around it. Then, so we have that basic thing. I want to save the kit. Yeah, remember people, just keep on saving your stuff as you're playing with these machines, because it's very easy to lose, but you get the hang of it. And I really like the kick engine on this, which is the bass tom. It's on the tom tracks again. So what I'll do is we had the, yeah, okay. So I will clear the track, and it sounds like this is the normal one. And what you're hearing is the analog generated bass tom. Yeah, and you have some parameters such as noise level, just for the beginning to give that click sound. And then you have a snap to change the click again, the beginning of the impact of the sound. So without it, which this is, I really like these soft kicks. And then you, with the another setting of snap, you get a bit more. This is the number 2, and then 3. What I really like doing here is actually combining the analog sound with the digital sample here. So I have a 909 kick. Yeah, so I assign that one, and the 909 kick sounds like this. Yeah, so I can combine these two. I can change the pitch of both and combine them. Let's see. I use a filter, so I use it as like a low pass filter with some kind of resonance to exaggerate the low end. Yeah, just maybe this is not the right frequency, but you get the idea. So you boost the low end of it, and on the same page you have the envelope filter, so you can keep the decay and release very snappy, have a bit of envelope filter to open up right at the beginning of the sound, So you're getting into the territory of these clicky drum sounds, and you got a really nice control. And each time I play this live, this thing that I can like bring in the click of the kick or in or out of the mix, it's really rewarding. I really enjoy it. This is a really cool thing. So let's put a 4/4 beat. Yeah. So I could like, you know, I would definitely have the kicks playing first like this. But as it's progressing, maybe you could raise the envelope a bit. Yeah, that's just the right sound. I mean, for me, yeah, that really does it for me. I haven't even used the overdrive on the kick, so let's try that a bit. So you can do that, but it's too much. But another cool thing is to have, let's go to the kick track, and I would have the decay of the analog engine very long, like this. And then I would use the envelope for the amp with a shorter decay. So what's happening here is that the analog engine is getting triggered and it has this very long waveform that is going for a long time. Then after that, there's the envelope generator for the volume. So I'm cutting it. The envelope generator for the volume comes after the generation of the sound. So then you can have a very tight kick. You have a hold parameter for the envelope of the volume. So this is like very clicky now. But you could set the hold parameter to be maybe this. And then, you know, it's like a strong kick that comes and goes without a kind of a tail. And I think that's quite important, especially when you're playing with big PAs. You need to have that, you know, you push the energy and then you take it back, release and pressure type of thing. Yeah. And I really, and you hear it, each time I hit it, you're getting a different type of click. And that's the analog nature of it. So now, yeah, I really like how the kick ends because of the hold parameter. If I have the hold parameter to maximum, yeah, this is too much. Well, I mean, it's nice, but you need to have the space. So I really like the envelopes on this, like, here we go. So it gives you enough room to put out a lot of bass frequencies and remove them very quickly because of the snappy envelope that you have right at the end of the chain, actually, the signal flow. And then, yeah, let's add some hi-hats, of course. Let's see here. And yeah, on the Mark IIs, the pads have been really improved. Maybe Mark I users, well, as me, it was really hard to play like quiet notes into it, but now it's very easy, you see. Before, it wasn't so. And the reason was that the pads weren't big enough. And that's kind of one of the reasons why the machines got bigger. Because we wanted to do things, you know, with a higher standard, but yeah, we had to invest in the real estate of the machines. So yeah, we could go down into real-time record mode, and this is a neat trick. When you go into real-time record mode, you can just press like this, and you could see there is like a little box that comes on or off. This tells me that now I have the quantized record on and now off. So you can instantly quickly change if you want to record in quantize or not. I prefer to record without the quantize, so let's do that. So I'm going to record the open hi-hat. Yeah, that sounds crap. But now I could go to the quantize, just select it for this track, and apply quantize to it. Gosh, I played that really bad. Okay, let's do that again. So let's clear that track. The hell was that, man? So let's put some offbeats then. Yeah, so then I can, and maybe I'm gonna extend the, what happened? No. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So I've extended only the hi-hat pattern to 32 steps. Now it's got 2 bars. For that, so that, you know, you have a bit more longer recording thing. So let's do that again. Yeah, it's crap playing. So now let's apply quantize. Yeah, and now I can go in and we're still playing 16. Anyway, then you can apply parental locks to the decay of this. But this is the really cool way of actually doing these things, because now I recorded this sloppy version of me playing, and now I can go in there, apply quantize, apply different rates of parameters per step, so you can really get the perfect sequence that you're looking for in a very easy way to do, actually. Yeah. And of course you have different hi-hat engines. Let's just try the metal. Yeah, this is the other one. And then you have the basic one. And you have a noise generator, which is very cool. I'll try that one actually. And the noise generator has its own filter. It's a low pass and a high pass with a low pass resonance. Yeah, this is really, really nice like this actually. Yeah. And then you could apply, you have an attack parameter. So maybe on the last step, I can have an attack to it. Let's see how this is going to work. Maybe I've tried this before. Let's see. Okay. Interesting. It's working here. Maybe I need to stop the sound, like I was saying before, with this type of trig. Let's try this out now. Yeah, now it's the attack is getting triggered. Yep, I hear that. Interesting. Okay, we do it like this. Yeah, here we go. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah, you see, it's yeah. You know, at first I couldn't do it, but then, you know, there's all these workarounds that you get to figure out when you're using the machine, which that is really, really cool. I mean, at first I couldn't do it, but then persistence, it happened. I really like let's have a look at the cymbal engine. Let's have a look at that. So this is called the ride engine, and this is how it sounds like at first. But this is, so you have 3 components that you can see, and they're all turned off. So this is the component 1. So this is like the beginning of the sound, and you have the second component, turn number 1 off, and this is only the second one. So this is a bit more decaying. And then the third one is like the best part of it. It's this weird tone that I really like. So you can mix these up to get a nice cymbal out of it. And you have 4 types of this. When I say type, it's actually the tuning of these different frequencies. Yeah, and then yeah, and then you have a tuning parameter for the whole thing. But yeah, for me, I always keep that at 0, especially for cymbal. I don't know, I really like this type of lazy, but you know, lazy from the past type of cymbal. Another thing that I like doing is here, with the LFO, I can assign it to the level of the cymbal engine, which hopefully I can find level. Here it is. Okay, so then I apply some depth. So you get this. Okay, so I'm going to use the trig mode for the LFO. When I do it like that, the LFO can be treated like an envelope generator, because what's happening now is when I trig the sound, the LFO gets triggered, and you can hear it, bum, 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 bum. And if I make it faster, the LFO rate, yeah. But if I make it really slow, then you're actually using it like like this type of stuff. So, and you have a parameter to decide the start phase of the LFO. So it's like using and these are the stuff that I really like doing. So now let's add some random trigs into it, and then yeah, you can have different speeds assigned to it. And it's funny that can't hear it at all. Okay. Yeah. And now they're all kind of like sounding, for me, the hi-hat is kind of, the cymbal is kind of boring, because always repeating it. At this moment, I think it's very cool to set the step length to make the 14, so that the cymbal is kind of like regenerating itself every time. yeah, and then these engines here, these ones, they are actually the most sophisticated analog engines here. So let's see, let's clear this track. You have a lot of different kick engines. So there's like a hard kick, classic. You even have a fan. Let's try this. What's going on here? Let's go to this track. That didn't sound correct. Okay, let's see it. Yep. Mind you though, I'm using an experimental OS here because, yeah, okay. So I think the FM stuff is changed a little. Yeah, you can get these weird sounds out of it with the FM. And the cool thing is you can layer this up with a kick. For example, yeah, kick with a noise actually. Yeah, it gets these stuff as well. Ooh, that's nice. Boom, boom, boom. And if you raise it quite high, and then yeah. Bit of a, I mean, it's got a kind of a character to it. And then let's have a look at the other engine. So that was the FM. There's a plastic, it's called. This is pretty cool actually. I believe it's a ring modulator. These type of. And if we use the other type of modulation, very nice waves. Yeah. And of course all this can be played chromatically, all the sounds we're hearing. Yeah, these ones. There you go. These ones are, and if you use the filtering with that sharp LFO trick, not LFO, the sharp filter envelope. Yeah, you can get some awesome kicks like this, I think. And you could change the note of the kick as well to get the right tonality for the other stuff that is playing, which I do that a lot. So you can just flick through this and it's not destructive. You're not changing the synth parameters, you're just changing the notes triggering value. I find it really useful to get the right frequency of the kick in these ways. And then we have the silky bass drum. Yeah, and you can do this type of stuff with it. Yeah, and there's a sharp. This one is the quite interesting. This one's got like some waveforms to it, so I got like a lot of release on it. Choose different waveforms. What I like doing is that you can actually play a melody on this. So we pick bandpass. Yeah, and if we go to the chromatic, yeah. You change the waveform. What I really like doing is selecting triangle, which I think has got a better character, and decreasing the volume and applying a lot of overdrive. So this distorted. And let's go to another track. That's enough of that song. It's something like this. But then with the chromatic mode, you can assign. Okay, I want this note here, that's this one here. Doesn't work. What was it again? Yeah, that one. And then this, yep. Yep. So you can easily make these type of weird loops. And of course you can hold multiple steps and assign percentage of triggering them. So they don't come in every time and become irritating. Well, at least for me. Yeah. And another cool thing would be to do here is apply an LFO to the decay time of the engine. So you get like different results most of the time. And let's use the clap engine. We have an analog clap here. So it sounds like. Yeah. What I really like doing it is like keeping the decay very sharp. And some overdrive. Yeah. And some filtering as well on it too. Yeah. Something like this. Yeah. And you can assign a lot of reverb to that. And let's do the hi-hat. Yeah, I was saying the re-triggering function. So when you're holding the steps, let's say these, and you can just press up. You can do these re-triggering, which is, kids love it. I don't know if my generation loves it, but hey, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, so you can make these type of stuff, and then you have swing, of course. Oof, very messy now, but it does that. So for the bass tone, that is the meaty thing here. We could maybe do like another pitch here. Oops. Yeah, here we go. And yeah, this will come in every 2 out of 2. And then we have a cymbal, clear that. Really long, and it comes like every 1 out of 3 here. Well, it should come. It's gonna come. Yeah. I don't like the tonality. Change that a bit. Overdrive. Down. Yeah, you can do all that stuff, and then you have, once you have a beat like this, definitely save your kit, because you could lose it by switching to another place. You have 2 modes here, which is the scene and performance mode, to change the parameters very quickly of what you're playing. So, so we have this beat, and with the scene and performance modes, each of the pads can carry a different set of parameters here. So I could say, okay, on this one, I want to change the bass tom tracks filter into a bandpass. Okay, and then it sounds like this. Yeah. So I could change the frequency a bit. Yeah, that's okay. Then of course the hi-hats, you need to do something about that. So you select the hi-hat track, press the C, and make them really short. With a lot of reverb maybe. And maybe change the frequency. Yeah. Something like that. And then the clap engine, yeah, you can make it really long. So, and the melody sound here, let's take that up a pitch. So now that's one of the scenes. So I could go to another scene to come back to where I was. So you can switch between them. This is really cool way to do actually. On this scene here, let's assign different parameters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the analog kick and just have the sample playing, but I'll assign a different sample. This one here. And on the hi-hat, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to turn the hi-hat down, assign the LFO to the sample selection. He's talking over me. So I'm going to assign the LFO to the sample selection with a lot of depth and activate, well, turn on the sample. Ooh, I don't know what's gonna happen, but let's see. I haven't lost what I had before because I can switch to the scene and I will be there instantly. And I need to play around with this. Yeah. So that's what the scene mode does there. It's basically like global parameter locks that you can assign to the pads and play around with them like that. And the performance knob kind of performance page, the mode that works kind of similar, but instead it's got the pressure sensitivity on the pads. So the more you press, the more you apply the modulation that you've assigned to it. And with the quick performance knob here, you can press its button and select which one that you want to assign the knob to do. So now it's assigned to that one because I want to press it, I see it's green. So if you can see that it's turning purple, just like I was applying pressure, but here I can assign it to a knob. It's another cool thing to have. Let's see here, I don't know if these, yeah, they don't do much, so I'm going to delete them. So I select clear all for the performance macros and we start editing this one. So I want to have the tuning of the kick very going high, some filter opening, yeah, this is all guesses, and a lot of reverb. On the hi-hat track I'm going to do the same again, open it up, get the pitch higher as well, and some delay to that maybe. Then we had the melody sound. I want to change, that's not going to work. Okay, what we can do, yeah, just change the filter as it's playing. So let's see. And on this one, yeah. So this is what I just assigned to the tracks. Yeah. So you can actually use it as like a build-up or something like that. There's a lot of ways to use it. I don't think I even like scratch the surface on it. I don't use it that much. It's always the way I use it is just remove the low end. So you remove the kick and maybe add reverb to the other tracks, so it's kind of like a bit of a void, and then you drop it back in. That's the way, kind of the way that I've been using it a lot. Yeah. What else? Oh yes. At least finally I can show you guys something new. Well, it's not really new, but I'll call it new. So maybe you guys have heard we have the dual VCO engine. This is not really released yet, and we talked about this at the launch of the RYTM MK2, saying that yeah, it will come soon, and soon is not here yet, so it will come soon again. And okay, let's go to this track. Like I said, I'm using a different OS that is not really public yet. Why is it not working? Okay, you're working. If I clear the track, if I go to dual VCO, here we go, yay, okay. So this is how it sounds. What it is that it's kind of like a synth engine for the rhythm. You have two oscillators that you can choose which waveforms that you want to combine with. Right now they're both sine, so I could select it so that one of them is like a different waveform. Here we go. Then you have a detune parameter. Do that. You have a band parameter. Yeah, you really want to do that. And you can tune it down, of course. So you can get these monstrous bass out of it. One of the really neat things about this is you have decay for each of the oscillators. So now both the oscillators, they have the same amount of decay, but if I decrease one of them, which I think this is the sol one, the sine one, yeah, here we go. This is a really cool way to mess around with the sounds, I think. I really enjoy this way of doing it. Or I could do it the other way around. And on top of this, you have modes to reset the waveform each time you press it. That is indicated by the line underneath. So we can do all that. It's very cool to add the overdrive to this. Then you have, of course, the filter. Making these very fat basses is like really pretty easy with this machine, and it will be available out there soon. As you can see, it's not fully functioning. We still need to understand some things. Yeah, coming up with these bass stuff is really good. Let's go to an empty pattern and let's set up some tricks for this. So it's like, okay, yeah, so I'm gonna set it up to like maybe 1 out of 2. But this bass is very long, it's still creeping up. So I need to use the amp, the envelope for the volume. Yeah, like this, bit more hold to it, I guess. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. And then here I'm gonna assign a different note. Which note shall that be? So I was using that one, and then, yep, or, yeah, that one. And I will assign it here, and then I will assign that one here. And I will use the trick conditions to extend the sequence basically without having to deal with the different pages and all that stuff. This is all in your face and very easy to come up with some stuff like this. And now, why they don't respond to the pitch? Yeah, here we go. And then you can assign re-triggering to the VCO. I did not meant to do that, but it just happened. Yeah. I think the band parameter, I need to turn the band parameter off. Yes. Yeah, here we go. And let's set this up to like 2 out of 2. And here we had another note. Yes, this one. And then if you just put a kick on this, hopefully the kick sounds okay. But yeah, you get the idea. But yeah, it's almost like this, I got this guy standing here, invisible, and he's just playing this bass note that I didn't even program. Well, I did program, but the way that the parameters are like offered to the user gives you a very, I think, a nice way to experiment and come up with these riffs that you wouldn't normally come up with. Like I said, the invisible man is the parameters, that type of thing. I don't know. And then yeah, but now the other tracks are working. So you can actually run 3 of the dual VCO engines because only these 4 tracks allow it. And because these 2 tracks are sharing it, you can't, so the clock will mute the bass. But on these ones, they're all independent and you can choose them. So let's use this one and try to make some kind of like a high note. Yeah, like this. And then and I could set the sequence length to 3 steps. It's a very naughty sequence length, I think, that one. And then yeah, it's just some weird 7 and -3 or something like that. And then if you turn the volume down, and then you could just start feeding that in. And there's some reverb and stuff. I'm going to assign a 20% chance of triggering that, so it doesn't come in every time. And these ones, they can come every 5 out of 5. and some re-triggering as well on the first one, and maybe more delay and reverb. And I have the performance macro, and then maybe I can apply tracks. Yeah, definitely. When you're happy with the results, save the kit. The amount of stuff that I lose on this stuff, on these machines, because of the architecture is based, is quite a lot. So I've learned it the hard way. And so when you have a composition like that, you have master effects. So there's like the analog compression and the analog distortion. Yeah. And let's have a look at that. So this is the distortion. And you have a symmetry parameter for it, which kind of makes it thinner and kind of cuts the sound. Yeah, especially if I remove all this. Yeah. And it's very cool is that you can have the delay, so delay and reverb before or after this. Now it's pre, so it's before. So the reverb is taking a lot of the air in there. So I do it post. So you have a much more better thing going on there. Yeah, but it's too distorted. So let's set it back to where it was. So you have that distortion and you have the compression. I just noticed that the compression was already active, so I'll turn it off. And this is how it sounds like. Okay, let's set it up like this. So you can really, well, you can use the compressor to actually enhance the volume, which, you know, is the wrong way of doing it, but hey. And this is what I really like doing it. I really crank the compressor up like this, and then I have the mix volume. So I'm mixing it in with the original value and the compressed value. So you can get a very good result out of it. So if I turn the compression off, it's this. So just applying the right amount of mix into the compressor and the original one, it's too tricky. Because the whole mix, the only compression is this. Yeah, that definitely is not for me, but this is really good. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much the analog rhythm. It has all the tracks, the 8 voices. You have individual output for them. So in other words, on these machines, you don't really need to wait for overbridge to record a multi-track. But on the Digi series, you do, because they're smaller and they're cheaper. So it's cut corners with those, you know, cost boosting features such as the ins and outs and all that stuff. And of course, this will get the overbridge treatment when it's available, and then you record everything multi-track, streaming it into the computer. Then you have the 2 CV ins, just like on the Analog 4, where you can assign different parameters to it, and control those parameters via CV. You know, just plug in an oscillator, or maybe, yeah, this is a cool thing. You could actually route one of these outputs back in here, and yeah, it will modulate each other or something. Yeah, that's quite possible.
Can you sidechain within?
Excuse me, please.
The mic.
I'm sorry. Can you sidechain the bass within this?
Yes, there is a bit of a feature, but I wouldn't really call it sidechaining. It's called sidechain EQ. But you were asking the bass. So you can actually select the sidechain, the lows or the highs, or there's another selection called hit. I think that is the, I don't really know how to explain that now. But you can assign either low or high frequencies to the sidechaining. One thing to note here is maybe on the Digitact you have a bit more sophisticated sidechaining feature, because we thought that machine is more suited for that stuff, because of its simplicity and the way that we want to reach out to people. So then on that one you can select one of the 8 tracks as a sidechaining, which is more common way of doing it. This is a bit more uncommon, and yeah, this is what it offers here. So there isn't like the sidechaining that I think you're imagining, but you can have it a bit like that. Yes, yeah. Do you have any more questions? Yes, you do.
Can you record real-time changes in the parameters, like
Yes.
the knobs? Yeah.
Shall we do it?
Yeah, I'd love to, yeah.
Let's see here. So before I do that, I always copy the pattern. So if it sounds crap, which it will do, then I could just reload it back in. So I enable real-time recording mode. So then, yeah, this one that is a 3-step mode. So I'm gonna do real-time record mode. Wow, what's going on there? Okay, and then I don't really hear the changes, but let's do. I don't know, but let's go to the hi-hats. Yeah, this is gonna be audible. These. So I'm just changing random parameters. So you can do all that stuff, which is really cool. It's weird though, like I said, the dual VCO, it acted a bit weird when it was getting real-time record things. Let's put these ones here. And yeah, we'll do it now. Yeah, real-time recording trigger conditions, right? Yes, but you can't do that. I think there is a space for that, but it's almost a bit creepy. But I would like to do it.
It's a wide source recorder. It's parameter.
Yes, but it's just not allowed in the system. It's a conceptual design issue, I guess. But yeah, so let's continue that. You can even like change samples. So you can mess around with the sample selection parameter, and that will get recorded in sequence. Yeah, that's actually pretty nice. Yeah, so you can do that. And like I said, before I did this, I copied the pattern into the buffer. So then I could actually do the paste command and I will get back to where I was. But now if I hold my button on function, I could do... This is a really cool performance mode, and this is unfortunately not written in the manual. It's kind of... Yes, exactly. You can paste and undo and undo and undo. You can do this with many of the features with page copy, like I'm doing it here, page copy paste. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities with copy and paste. And I use it a lot like an undo, and as well as a performance feature, just like now. This is really, really cool thing, I think, to be looked on. And this applies to all our machines. Even on the mono machine and machine drum, you have more copy buffers. So what you could do there, you could copy a step, then copy a track, then copy a pattern, then copy a sound. And all of them will be in memory. But on the new ones, you don't have that. After Octatrack, that was kind of like limited to only one buffer. There's always room to complain. I always do it. Yeah, but now I lost the buffer because I've been copying the page. That's the last thing I did. So I lost the pattern buffer there. It's, yeah, it is what it is, but yeah. Yeah.
Is there another way of?
Let's do it on the mic.
Is there another way of erasing the automation you did that is
Yes.
not?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yes. Let's see. Okay, we were the hi-hat track. So now I'm going to record sample changes. So good actually, yes. Yeah, so now you want to remove the recorded sample changes. What you need to do then, you need to be in real-time record mode and press no, hold the no, and press in the encoder that represents the parameter that you want to delete. Yeah. There you go. And this applies to all our machines. Yeah, it's not only these. So, yeah, there's so many features that you can't write everything on the interface or on the manual. Yeah, I guess that's why it exists then. Yeah, so you can do that, and that's a very cool thing actually. Another way to do it is let's record it again. So let's yeah. Then what you could do is you could hold multiple steps, the ones that you want to clear, and while holding them you could just click it. So those ones are cleared, and here I could hold multiple, clear too. Yeah, and maybe change the step length to 7. Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Like I said, this machine is my favorite. This is just very good. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Oh yes, one more. Get the mic.
Is there a way to set a condition for a knob? So you could say, this time, or 50% of the time this knob's here, 50% of the time this knob's here. So rather than just alternating whether the note's on or off, it alternates the trig condition?
Yes, you can.
You can do it?
Yes, because let's try that. Let's go to another pattern. I was bored of that. So we have a long bass. Yep. Yep. So now if you hold function and place trigs, you got these yellow notes, okay? And I could change the filter for these. Yeah. And on this one I want to have a different filter frequency. Let's have it really loud. Yeah, now it's working. And here I want to have a different frequency, like mega. Yeah. Yeah. And on this one, let's have another one. Yeah, here we go. But yeah, you don't want them triggering all the time, right? So then you hold the ones that you don't want to trigger. And then you say 19%. This is so good. I think this is like really killer in electronic music in my opinion. So you can do that, and that's a very good question. I should have said that. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, yeah. So the automation and the triggering the sound is customizable with the trig condition parameter. It's yeah, really nice. Yes. I guess that's it then. Oh, one more.
Is there also a reset trigger?
Let's do the mic.
Cenk, so also what you showed up, the trig conditions that you can get reset to all parameters you changed before. I mean, before the triggers, you had these parameter locks only for the trig conditions, so I already changed the sound.
I don't really understand.
Your last example, for example, you changed the yellow LEDs on the to change values, and after the trigger, I would like to come back before all the ones, before the first even change. So, I mean, you have a parameter change lock where you change the parameters of the sound without having a trig on these things, but after the last one I want to probably go back in my loop. So how you create a zero reset parameter trigless lock?
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, but I mean you can leave that maybe.
I think
I mean, when you like to go back to your sound where you have it, maybe then you can only reload, but if you want to program that.
so you want to program like the reloading of sounds type of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
so
change
but you you could do that with parameter locks, no? Because you can assign different values to the whole sound. The whole track parameters can be locked, right?
Yeah. So then you need to set another triggerless and change back to the reset value.
Yes,
like that.
but let's try that actually. Wait a minute. Let's clear this. So we have the bass example again. So correct me if I'm wrong, okay? So here on this on this automation only, like the trigless trig, I'm gonna have a very high tune. Or let's do. Yeah, we can hear that. Yeah. Okay. So you want when that triggers, it triggers like every 2 out of 2, okay? So it doesn't trigger this time. So after this trigger, you want sound to reset. But it does. You see? Because of this.
Yeah, but I mean when you have changed the example before, you have several ones, and then inside the 16 triggers, you want to go just where you have one before.
Yeah, but what you can do then, you can apply a lot of these, okay? And some of these will have, let's do the sausage move. This is great. Yeah. So some of them are just gonna have these, so they're random. But you want some of these to reset the sound to the original value. Yeah. Then you see the flashing ones, they have information on it, but this one is not flashing. So I could say that I want to reset all these parameters to as they are, and I could just do that by clicking on it. Is this you're asking? Is it maybe? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but you can do it. It's a bit painful to do it, but yeah, you can. And once you've done this, so you are on this, trigger this. Wow, I've never done anything like this. What the hell? What did you have for breakfast this morning? Okay, so yeah, every parameter you can see on behind me, yeah, they're all locked. So that means that this is the one that will reset the sound as it should be. So then you could copy that and paste it around, and you could give different percentage of the trig conditions to them. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah.
How does it sound?
Ooh, you really want to hear? That's actually fat. yeah. Yeah, that's actually. So yeah, it's a good way to mess around with. There's some clickings, like why it happens. I explained. If you study in, you can get rid of them or you can leave them. But yeah, put the kicks in. Yeah. So you can do that. Yes. Yeah. I'm very impressed to answer your question.
That the new VCO on the reading is going to be only for the MK2 or also the MK1 versions?
It's going to be for both. Yes.
Thanks.
I mean, to be honest, we had this engine for a long time, and we just didn't release it because we thought that it was lacking some stuff. And now we're finally at the end of it, and I have a feeling that it may come at the same time with Overbridge. Don't hold me accountable for it, but it may happen that way. So it's not that long to wait. Yeah, hopefully in the I can't say time. Yes, yeah. Well, so if there's no more questions, that was it.
There is a question from the streaming. It's about the analog keys. What's the future for analog keys?
Yeah.
There is going an MK2 version. Are you going to update it with new OS versions? You know.
Yeah, I can't really answer for the future, but what I can say for keys is that I think it's discontinued now. We don't sell it officially. It's unfortunate because we don't have a keyboard product now. We don't have that. I can't really comment to the future of it, but it's very likely that in the future that there could be a keyboard product, but I don't know. I'd like to see one. I'd like to see, something with keys and more polyphony, but with this sound. This thing sounds really good, I think. The only thing that I would say is that it should have more polyphony, like the digitone. That's one of the reasons why personally I'm in favor of digitone to this one. But each time I come back to this, I'm like, oh yeah, the sound. These are the sounds that I'm like busting my dudes to get it on the digitone. But here it's kind of easy to get that fat sound, but you're limited to 4 tracks. Yes. But for keys, it's discontinued. Yeah, hopefully in the future we'll have something to remedy that. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
¿Alguna última pregunta? Last question.
No. But it was good.
3, 2, 1.